the first to know. Nsem-Pii TV.
Former President Kufuor, the gentle giant, information a PM say National Delegates Conference from Ochina Equity Saturday Sunday on the PM Obi. Kufuor Bebre say the National Council Planning Committee at the National Executive Council of the New Patriotic Party almost sidelining President Kufuor and almost sidelining President Nana Addo Kufuor, the former president of the New Patriotic Party. But Nana Akomea at the National Executive Council meeting no will be in commodity course who na will be or Kase President Kufuor a letter become National Executive Council were releasing the content of those letter about media space no so near Pesi de Bremo and the entire President Kufuor on to me PMO with the National Delegates Conference. Now, Kufuor Bebre as a National Executive Council on my sideline, the former president, the gentle giant, or sitting and no correct now. Challenges be and more have with President Kufuor in terms of the timeline, you and in Yema and Kakahwa and Untina, President Kufuor intimate PMO at the National Delegates Conference for this year. And we are near the Abronye statement I will release regarding President Mahama's Dumso levy or the petrol boso and so asoso. But before that, Yanguti Nana Akomea na National Executive Conference, National Executive Council meeting on Mohave about President Kufuor's letter. Details I will na ira the asoso no asoso.
President Kufuor is a member of all the decision-making organs of the NPP at the national level. The basic decision-making organ is what we call the steering committee. And then on top of the steering committee, that means the decisions of the steering committee would have to be reviewed, if there has to be a review, by a body which is on top of the steering committee called the National Executive Committee. Now all the members of the steering committee are members of the National Executive Committee. At the National Executive Committee level, there are a lot more people, regional chairmen, members of parliament and so on. And then on top of the National Executive Committee is the National Council, which outside the conference, the National Council is the highest decision-making body of the party. Now, President Kufuor, like myself, is a member of all these structures of the party. And I do not think it is possible that President Kufuor will not be invited to meetings of these organs. I don't think that is possible. Anytime there's a meeting, for example, I get 2 invitations from 2 sources, and so I can't imagine President Kufuor. And he has designated two people in his office to be receiving the invitations. So I do not think that the complaint that I've heard President Kufuor make has to do with his invitation to the meetings. I don't think that is the issue. Because as for meetings of these structures where decisions are taken, definitely he's invited to all of them. Let me add quickly, the last meetings that I attended of the National Executive Committee and the National Council, President Kufuor was not present. The last 2 meetings of the National Council, for example, the last but one meeting was the meeting where the Professor Okoye report was presented to the party. President Akufo-Addo was there. Dr. Baumia, the former vice president, was there. But President Kufuor was not present at that meeting where the Okoye Committee's report was presented. The last meeting was actually one of the main reasons why the last meeting of the National Council was called, was to consider one appeal that President Kufuor had made regarding the national conference that is coming on Saturday. And at that meeting too, which took place just this Monday, President Kufuor was not present. But clearly, definitely, the invitations would have been sent to his office. So I do not think his comment has to do with non-invitation to meetings to take decisions.
What was that proposal?
Which one?
The one that you sat on Monday. You said it was based on a proposal.
Yeah. President Kufuor had written to request that he would have liked to attend the National Delegates Conference in person, but he is out of the country as we speak. So he had requested if the National Delegates Conference can be moved from Saturday, which is the 19th of July, to the end of August, when he expects to be in the country, and he would have liked to attend that delegates conference. And of course, there was also a Blekuma. So the party called an emergency National Council, because the National Council which fixes the date for the delegates conference. And so emergency meeting was called of the National Council to consider President Kufuor's request for the postponement. And when the National Council met, the President Kufuor's letter was read. It was considered, but it wasn't possible to accept his request.
Why?
Simply because of logistical issues. The request came in a bit late. All the arrangements have been made for the delegates conference. We are looking at 6,000 people, party people from across the country coming to Accra. The planning processes have been completed. The venue had been secured at the University of Ghana's Sports Stadium. Accommodations have been secured at UPSA, Valley View University, Anakazo. Anakazo is a church.
Yes, at Nampo.
At Nampo. We couldn't secure accommodation at Legon, but accommodation have been secured. Now, payments have been made for venue, for the accommodation, for catering, the whole shebang. So, if we're going to postpone to say August, end of August, you couldn't guarantee the venue, because as soon as the league, the football league kicks in, the University of Ghana Stadium wasn't going to be, you couldn't guarantee that it would be available. The UPSA, where we got up nearly 2,000 or so accommodation, we got it because the second and the third years were out of school. Yeah, you couldn't guarantee that end of next month, end of August, the cohorts, the second, third year will not be in school. Same as Valley View. Same as Anakazo. Anakazo apparently is a very busy venue for a lot of church events, and you couldn't guarantee that all of these places would be available if we were to move the conference to the end of August. So basically, it was just logistical issues. If the request had come in a bit earlier, because the planning committee had been set up, and Joe Wise, I'm calling him Joe Wise because he himself likes to be called so, but Joe Wise.
Joe Wise,
yeah. A planning committee had been set up under Joe Wise. They had been working for 2-3 weeks before the request came in. So it was unfortunate that because of the logistical issues, the National Council could not accept. But they are going to do a Zoom hookup. In fact, President Kufuor is also out of the country, and he would also like to send a goodwill message. So there's going to be a hookup through Zoom for the two personalities.
But so now indicating to us that you've set up a committee to engage President Kufuor on his concerns. That includes Katie Hammond and Natoshe and the others. Have they brought you feedback on what he thinks about the decision?
Yes. So I had mentioned earlier that President Kufuor's issue could not be about attendance at meetings, because he definitely will be invited to the meetings the decision-making structures of the party. If he wasn't able to attend, there's nothing that could be done. I mean, you couldn't go to a meeting of the National Council and take a decision, and then somebody would say, oh, but let's go and consult so-so and so-so. It's not going to be possible. So his issue will not have to do with attendance at meetings or invitation to attend meetings. What I gather is that he made specific references. He made references to the Okwe Committee, for example, which was set up to look into the significant causes of the party's defeat last year. And the Okwe Committee did a lot of consultations, a lot of meetings, and they met President Kufuor. And they had a long session with him about what he also thought and what changes he would suggest and so on. And they met a lot of other people. I suspect President Kufuor expected that at the end of the work, they would give him feedback as to, because he had engaged them for a couple of hours, he expected that they would give him feedback. And he didn't get that feedback. The next thing he knew, the report had been presented to the National Council. So he thought they should have done him the courtesy of giving him maybe a draft copy, if not the final copy of the report, so he could see what was going to be given to the party. He also made reference, I gather, to the Frank Davies Committee. Okay. The Frank Davies Committee, after the Okwe Committee's report and recommendations, the Frank Davies Committee was set up to look at the Okwe's report and also get feedback from party people as to what constitutional changes would be feasible, would be required and would be feasible. So the Frank Davies Committee was set up after the report of the Professor Okwe Committee. Now the Frank Davies Committee also met with President Kufuor. I think they were with him for 2 or 3 hours to get his feedback on the way forward. And he also expected that when the Frank Davies Committee finished its work, he would have been given feedback. And so not getting that feedback and just hearing that the committee had finished the work, done their collation of views, and they've presented a report to the party, he felt he should have been given some advance. Okay. Now, because President Kufuor is the NPP's first president, you can see that is not a small personality. So the National Committee, the National Council, decided to appoint a 5-member group to engage with President Kufuor on his issues and to see what accommodation can be made. Because, like I said, I gather that President Kufuor made 2 references to the Okwe committees and to the Frank Davies Committee. So to see what kind of arrangements can be made in terms of those specifics. Now, the extent that the committee was set up, in fact, the committee was actually prepared to go to London to engage him. But I understand that they've been doing some online engagement with him. Okay. The committee was set up on Monday, right, and I suspect they had some online engagements with him. If necessary, I'm sure they'll go to London to engage him. That's how important that the party regards President Kufuor. Okay. So that's the situation as we speak.
Okay, so let's get into the conference now. But before we get into the conference, we need to go for a quick break. When we come back, because talking about the amendments, there are concerns about, what looks like when it comes to election of flag bearer, done deal, but there isn't a clear path when it comes to the reorganization at the polling station level. Stay with us, we still have the Akomea.
Yani enu enfan commercials for a blue regional chairman of the New Patriotic Party. Chairman, watch it.
I'm a Joshua Mini, I'm at the same.
Boko. Na, you can enjoy them, city.
I wouldn't say, yeah, would do for until I'm not class here. Now, the other who could be on one Yambia. What's that one kind of Pamako did not? I never be produced. Look how producer at the end of the liar. I know the man faster than you. Me introduce to our don't go on your bill. Look what the dinner. I'm not going to me, Yano. The minimum I take Yano. Who's the mom was cigarette? No, 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 my Yabia. No, minimum I had to condo,
Mate. Now, Mammy, licensure exams. Was one was Sembika. Now, young fan, no ancient. I
am not starting. I'm coming start with Lancesiane, Dumso Levy. I have full allowance. He wants them. Yes, start to meet you. Master, Mamma, Konya will know what down. Mentia what tear for Baby or Filicasiano, a Coduria Momunina acting. Na near Dikai. Yeah, my mom for Ninati, as you say. I'm a said there, one million, dear be a communist inferior tax to Biano. Obianimo. Lancencia exams a can was semino. About 2013. And yet, previous government on the offer by it. And yet, MPP are buying the offer Lancencia exams by it. And yet, 2013. A brother director general be a friend of the safe now. Our Ghana Education Service or no, and the land chase up a policy, no, a friend central for man, bad, telegraphic front page. There's a say there, a teacher for Nina, a barber, exams here, the lances, that the Oko UK, Womayan, Oko America, Womayan and Winnie Lances, I want to mean practice, want to mean trad, yes, a teacher, and come no yard, you know, one of my yard, going to say what to climb the Ako a mine, I do one answer. One of my yard, going to say, also to be no more, as I say, womb too, as I say, you roll in as a professional person.
Yes.
A British education say, I will be to say, or my cashier to say, you can. The only answers I want to make radio. It is a buying the above, not a chino, a buying fee say. A whole Yana so year free. Opian in Yasem. Now, I'm near Catria and I say, Ya Catria and say, yeah, no lunches now would you through on the issue. Teacher Nina or Quaquatia now when you in lunches your free one. The Ben now with Yamaka. Because I will overkaya a brand year bar by Mono. Nanado Danko Kufuor buying a being heritage. Teacher Nsem-Pii or Moka, no, but do I 126,000. No, my year, Juma and Fear 9, a byway and a buyer tissue that time, and Pure Moka. One would get my secretary, then, never know I David for it. One in the dear Nemo, Eddie Memo, at the command Nanado Danko Kufuor, the former president. And now, our friend, Younger Matthew Poco Pempe, wow, me up and at the tone and him say, Niaba near teacher for 126,000 and I tried your previous government, you know, Yentia or Moka. Yentime Monko, yeah, I do my Yentia Moka, Krakunka, and Fao to my Nina Katian, and me, into say Pesca, near the moment, my younger Napo, as education minister, make his sure say. 126,000 teachers or much here. And let a banner or tissue no what was and so on piano. Ye piano na every one of them. And then a banway about you were teachers here. What much here? I'm a Ghana Education Ministry on no. Yet the police for the first time it won't be the minister was a police for the blue chroma. What my batty me who yano. Me young see me. ekopam teacherfo a wo mo so wo man no epam wo mo free what say wo mo ni right to say wo mbeba ho ababa bisa aban ne say da ban ne ye betu wo mo ka ye pam sankwa no enkwa ketwa a wo makwa ko handan abobosia ahandan tim na yentua wo mo ka 7 months ni ye pam wo mo free eno na de nye aban no policy say aban no betima ba abonten ababa ka say by August no de ye betua teacherfo no nyina wo mo kogu ha wo mo ye aduma bosumi dunie no enya aban na yi say betua mo ka August na bom ni enyi aban ni say ye be yi lankesia ejamtia free honom na amanfo abote say ya ya de na mom ye friend outside gentility home cry ana okoye kurati wa side to sukuu no ye friend take home cover home ya ye ko side to ewo abronya ho no ade we a omo ye no ye friend take home cover home tikani na wo bona ba se on trailer sia exam ti biem no so omo se ba ne ni anom bia omo di nanim no akwa kira de abosumi tunie fiewura fo twomo wo mo nyi sika obeto electricity adi atnamu na wasoro mpo akwa na obefa so ato na tade aye problem enti ano so abana oyi lantesia exam sia firi wonom no atitafo na omo kogu Ministry of Education ayadi police for ma bati akese ye nimba bi omo firi kwa pa omo no da ba na aban ni twa omo ka
na mami mu say sabra no a mu firi aban mu no sa teacher for na omo ti sa no mama omo financial clearance
me da say financial clearance na no omo be issue statement so omo hu ye no ya publish a teacher for na nkasa publish financial clearance womo ba metric yi omo koye or control and say nyina the former minister ni statement was issue of parliament letter of financial clearance ni nyina wo in fact so kwa handing over notes honorable aduchum edema abandon the transitional team omo gitu mu a one person say a teacher for any nurses for abandon fa wo mo no wo nyina nya financial clearance in fact so kwa handing over notes wa honorable anka edema honorable atofosnya wakatira wo mo say wo mo sika aye ready ada honom enye se afa na ba enfofuo bi ba ba kwakopo musika wo musika ye budget ye no sika ni nie ama ye handi over edema honorable Akufo in the current finance minister ama ne da say abai no